You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hi, everybody. It's Miss Jen. I'm back to Talkin Shop. Thanks so much for y'all being patient while I needed some time off, weirdly dealing with some anxiety. Who knew that someone that spent as much time as I do talking to people online had an anxiety? But I do. What are you going to do? You get older and things pop up that you're not expecting. What I am always excited about, though, is getting to talk to my friends about comic books. That's never, ever going to change, however anxious I am about the whole thing. Today, I get to talk to really amazing people. You're going to love getting to know Wagner because his work is amazing. You may or may not have heard of the books that he's done, but you should definitely have all of them on your shelf. But also, you'll have to wash your eyeballs out with soap afterwards, and that's cool. And then McKinley, which also you may not know the project that they're pitching right now, but you definitely know their work because of our friend Dirk Manning. So we've worked on stuff together a lot. So please like and share, subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you are watching us from the YouTubes. We've broken the mark of getting to open up more cool shows for you guys. So we're on a race to 3,000 now, so we can open up even more shows. So it's up to y'all. We're letting you guys open them up as fast as we can. All right. I'm going to be right back in just a second, and we'll get after it. I'm so happy. Lorena and Make 2 are already here today, and they are supporters of our channel. So thank you so much. Your support of the channel assures that we can have awesome programming like this for you guys all the time. And it's also thanks to wonderful creators that give time out of their day to come and be here. So welcome, my friend, Doug Wagner.
Hey, Jen, how's it going?
So good. So good. I'm very excited. I know we were talking right before we came on about our respective temperatures, and you live in heaven in Utah.
Yes, that is true. And
I live in, I don't want to call it hell because I love it here, but it's 102 here. So
yeah, I bet. I mean, I don't know how, I kind of bumped into Utah, but I moved here from Atlanta, so I understand all too well the southern heat and humidity and how those work together. I won't lie, I don't miss them, but I feel
really
your
cool, pain. I've actually gone to visit Atlanta because Aftershock's main offices were there. I got to go visit Joe Pruitt, and I really liked it out there. It's really pretty.
Oh yeah, Atlanta was nice. Yeah.
So what brought you to Utah? Family?
Well, honestly, my wife kind of grew up. Her family come out here skiing from time to time, and she thought maybe she and I would retire out here at some point, but she got a job offer. Obviously, what I do, I can work anywhere. Yeah. So, and I was an Army brat, so I was like, hey, let's move. I don't care. Like, if we don't like it, we'll move back. And we've been here for over a decade now, so clearly we like it.
Okay, talk to me about being an Army brat. How many places did you live? Did you ever get to live overseas?
Nope. I was just in the South. So never got overseas or any of those kind of things. My dad was in the 101st Airborne, and then also the Army National Guard for quite some time. And so being a paratrooper and that kind of stuff, it was mostly just in the South, helping train people and doing those kind of things.
That's really cool. I actually did a little bit of research for a book I was thinking about writing, but it was for places in Georgia specifically. So it's like, I can't remember the name of any of them, so I wouldn't know if you've ever been in any of those places. It's fun doing research for books, right?
Oh yeah. Well, there's sometimes you can get too into the research of a book, which, you see people do from time to time. It's like, yeah, I spent 6 years researching this book. And it's like, well, you probably could have written a couple of books during that time, but research is, I probably spent 4 hours yesterday doing research for just 1 page of script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just what that's what it's going to take. Just depends on, I need pictures for Daniel to draw this. So I've got to, find those kind of references and those kind of things. Not just the easy, like, hey, draw draw this and you go find it. It's like, but yeah, research can be fun and a pain all at the same time.
Something I've wondered often, is there a place for writers to sign up online that tells the government you're not really researching sex dolls and assassinations and
pretty much at this point I've just resigned to the fact that the NSA is listening to my phone calls. So you just, every now and then you'll just start out by going, hey, listen, I know I'm talking about taking down the electrical grid, but this is just for fun and it's for a comic book. Check my, you got to do those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, it's, there's nowhere to sign up to say, hey, I'm harmless. But, at the same time, you kind of know, like, hey, they probably got an eye on me from time to time.
I wonder at this point if the government has a division that just reads bunches of comic books because they have really great ideas and research in them, that they'll be like, we need to prepare for such a thing because that could happen.
Yeah. I mean, you hear like, truth is stranger than fiction and sci-fi kind of leads the way where we go, right? I mean, there's no cell phones without Star Trek. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, we come up with problems for our heroes to solve. And sometimes, like in Thomas River, where we're having terrorist attacks, like you hope that the NSA maybe does pick up your book and go, yeah, let's make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen.
Right. Have you ever read a comic book story that you were like, that it was so kind of like frightening in its premise of could happens that you were like, I put a new thing on my radar to watch out for?
I think one of the ones that like intrigued me the most was the Department of Truth.
Oh yes.
Because because you see, I mean, conspiracy theory just keeps growing, right? I mean, the flat Earth fan base has grown since the internet came out. Mm-hmm. In the Department of Truth, and you're like, oh my God, what if it is like, what if manifestation is more real than we think? And the more people believe something, the more true it becomes. Right. That's scary. That's scary.
Oh, absolutely. There's another one out called The Recount that Jonathan Hedrick was putting out during the same time when the January 6th thing was going on. And I would message him and be like, dude, you better stop writing things. He was like, I wrote this a year ago. I'm not a prophet. I was like, but it looks like it right now.
Oh, yeah.
This goes somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, look at how many times have you seen The Simpsons on the news with like, hey, they guessed all this. You're like, well, did they guess it or did they manifest it? Like it's scary.
I'm just guessing that you probably, I'm going to say this and it's probably wrong. You probably never met anyone at a convention that walked up and said that they know somebody like Edwin.
No, not yet. No, nobody, nobody yet. That makes sense because, the way we kind of write Edwin, he's kind of a solitary character anyway. So, not a lot of people have seen him and been able to tell about it.
I think that Plastic, which is your awesome series, is an easy pitch, but also it's easy for people to know whether it's their jam or not, because I tend to tell them, I said, it is very graphic on all levels, but also it's just so over the top that you just get to enjoy it because like, okay, he's carrying around a head in a plastic bag you can see through. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit ludicrous. And that's we kind of wanted to play with the dark comedy aspect of all that in the horror movies that Daniel and I love. And so it was a lot of fun to we're going over the top. I think in the first or second issue, it's been a while since the original Plastic came out, but like when he kills the guy in the car, I had to keep telling Daniel, like, more blood. And at one point he goes, there's more blood in here than the human body can hold. I go, that's the point. Yep. Like that's what we're trying to do.
So I can't remember. So in Plastic, I think that we already meet him once Virginia's been kidnapped, right? Mm-hmm. You don't get to see an origin story for their
No.
We discovered her.
No. Yeah, you're deep into the relationship. Well past their meeting point and that kind of stuff. No origin there.
So we'll give everybody kind of like the short synopsis. We've given everybody hints about what Plastic is about, but in case they have never really read that awesome book, give them an idea of what that universe.
And because like you said earlier, you can tell. I've done this enough at cons to go. You can tell by the look in their eye whether this is for them or not. So I've got to kind of get quick so we can get that out of the way. So for Plastic is about Edwin, who's a retired serial killer who's in love with a blow-up doll. Somebody steals it from him, so he has to come out of retirement to save the love of his life. So there's the quick, synopsis, quick pitch that I give people, and they either go, "Oh, really?" or they walk away in disgust. So there's rarely anything in between.
And they're officially married, is that right?
Well, I mean, I don't know about officially. I never touched on that, and I never really dived into that. It's just like they're true loves. So
love is real.
Yep.
Yeah, it's over the top awesome, and yeah, I'm so glad to have it on the rack for just like people are like going, especially for people who are like going, I like horror, but I don't like comic books. I'm like, hold up. You haven't seen this. It's like, do you like John Wick?
Yeah.
Or the normal. It's like, come on, we got you. So okay, so these are the things I fully intended to read both plush and vinyl, and just things just escaped me. Is that part of the same universe?
They are part of the same universe, but you don't have to read one to understand any of the other ones. I mean, it was real important to Daniel and I that we don't get kind of caught into the trap of like you see with Marvel and DC. We're like, hey, to understand this current X-Men story, you have to read, a story from 2 years ago. There's Easter eggs in each, but you don't have to read one to understand the other whatsoever. So yeah, but they're all in the same serial killer, now add cannibalistic furries with plush in there, but serial killer, cannibalistic furry universe.
So awesome. And then I know that you saw a big success with Click Click Boom.
Yes. Yeah. Click Click Boom was, completely different. Obviously not my normal serial killer, dark comedy, horror stuff. This one's more like an action. It's an action piece, and still, my stuff's always got a love story in the middle of it. And that one's kind of following Sprout, she's mute, so she doesn't speak. She's an assassin, and she only communicates through Polaroid pictures. So we had a lot of fun of Doug Dabbs, the guy that drew that one's a fantastic artist. So glad I bumped into him. But we had to figure out a new way to kind of speak, right? Because she never says a word, but the person she's with talks nonstop. So how do we communicate, what we want to get across with these Polaroids that she's showing to kind of tell her story, and of course the whole time have a fun action comic all in one.
Oh, absolutely. So how do you get inspired? Do you read a lot of books, watch a lot of movies?
Yeah, I mean, read a lot of books, watch a lot of movies. I think one of the things I was watching a masterclass the other day from R.L. Stine, and I think and hit it right on the head. The most important thing for a writer is personal experiences. You can read about writing, you can watch all the movies and TV you want, but it really comes down to, unfortunately, you have to get out of the house. You have to go experience things. You have to push your limits. You have to go see things you haven't seen before. One of the benefits I've had of being a writer is I get to go to a lot of different conventions and stuff. So I'm automatically getting new experiences on a regular basis of cities I've never been to, and if you spend a couple extra days and just kind of get to know the city and see how the people act there. But honestly, you have to be a people watcher, and you have to get out of the house and experience things. And honestly, that's where all the best ideas come from. You're sitting to a little kid and they say something funny and you immediately write it down. And the next thing you know, you have a story.
Perfect. Nate too's got a good question. Are you a collector of comics?
I used to be, but I'm not anymore just because I don't have the space. So it was one of those deals where I had to make that decision as an adult, of do I want to have my entire garage filled with comics and move them on a regular basis? Or, do I, so I collect stuff, but I'm very particular about it now. So now it's stuff that I only collect stuff I know I'm going to read again. That's the key to, you can see my bookshelf, I have a ton of graphic novels and hardcovers and those kind of things. So I'm very particular about what I collect. I read a ton of stuff, and believe it or not, I just take it back and give it to the store when I'm done with it.
Oh, that's so nice.
Well, I mean, I figured I want them to stay in circulation, so if I can take them back, and I don't care if they give them to somebody, I don't care if it costs, goes to the quarter bin, whatever it is, like to me, like just giving them back to the store and giving those books another chance to be read by somebody else, it helps everyone.
I love that thought process, because we do spend a lot of time hoarding things that we never touch again.
Yeah.
Do it. So when you were so you still are reading, what are your favorite titles right now?
Oh, right now, let's see. Oh man, that's always a tough one. Beneath the Trees. I'm really enjoying that. That's been a fun one. I just finished Uncanny Valley by Tony Flicks. I love the first issue of that one. Local Man, of course.
You haven't read number 2 yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't read number 2 yet, so don't tell me anything. But I loved number 1. I thought it was like one of the best first issues I've read in a long time. So people should check that out. And then Farrell, of course, he put out Farrell, Uncanny Valley, and then he's been doing Local Man for a while. And Local Man, as you know, got nominated for some Eisners, as it should. Yeah. And so, obviously I'm a Tony Flex fan, like love reading his books, but I'm all over the place. I sample a lot of books. So, but I'm not necessarily like a follower of one book forever kind of thing.
You should pick up Deviant. The
Deviant?
It's got Santa Claus on the front cover. It's another serial killer book.
I'm picking it up.
I think it's Image also. Dave's a fan.
Yep. Yeah, Tony's great. And he's a great guy too. We talk fairly regularly. Tony, like any chance we get at a show, there's a couple of other fellow creators, like we get together at shows and we just talk about business, kind of like you and I have done on emails from time to time.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to figure out how all this thing works, because it's always evolving, it's always changing, and you're trying to stay ahead of it, which is very difficult to do. And so Tony's one of those great guys that we just sit down and like we're completely open about what's working, what's not working, those kind of things. And so he's a great guy, not only as a creator, but like a fellow businessman to talk to as well, because he's just like always trying to stay ahead of the curve.
He's super smart about that. And you also are like, there's not just a ton of creators that I can think of that actively engage with retailers to just ask what's working, what's not working, be real with me so I know what's the right path.
Right. I have never understood that. I don't understand why creators and publishers don't understand more that, to me, because I ran stores for a while. Retailers are the blood of the whole industry. Like we're in a direct market now to where the only place you can really get the monthly book is from a retailer. And so not talking to them constantly and figuring out what they're going through and what kind of, ups and downs they're seeing or going through or ideas they might have. I don't understand why more publishers and creators aren't doing that on a regular basis.
Sometimes I hear from them that they do reach out, and a lot of retailers are more like insular and they just, like they're a single person working a store and don't have time to talk on the phone. And I hear them say like they call the wrong, like they call on Tuesdays when I'm trying to process books. I'm just like, but just tell them, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Can I make another time to talk to you? I would love to talk to you on Friday.
Oh, you do. I mean, it's I've done the whole like, new books coming out. Let's call every retailer on the country and see what happens. And I'd say, I'm probably like, I'd say 50 to 60% of them don't have time to talk or don't want to talk. It's hard to always feel that out. And that's fine. I mean, that's just part of the process. And, I understand that. There's sometimes when people call me and go, hey, how do you write a comic book? And I'm like, I don't feel like talking about that today. I got work to do. So, I understand it. But, but you also build a collection of like friends like you and me and Greg at Black Cat and the Prowse brothers at the Nerd Store and a couple other, retailers that I normally talk to, and you get like really good insights and a lot of help of like, hey, have you thought of this? And I'm like, no, I haven't thought of this. Thank you so much for helping me.
I love those brothers so much. They actually made a comment at Comics Pro that kind of took me back. He says that they come every year to Comics Pro and everyone assumes that they're like brand new retailers or something, even though I know they're one of the, they're just so unassuming and just laid back and chill. Yeah. Everyone should get to know them because they're awesome. Oh, another cool question. Do you only write, or are you involved with the artwork?
That's a trick question. So I only write, but at the same time, like there's a lot of like what I have to do is tell Daniel sometimes I'll be like, hey, I don't always say, hey, use this angle, or this is what I'm trying to, this is the underlying theme of this panel that I'm trying to portray. So sometimes I am dictating exactly what to draw, but I can't even begin to draw. Like it's not something I was born with. So yeah, I just do the writing and kind of, hand that off to people like Daniel and Doug Dabbs and Tim Odland to handle the rest of it.
Yeah, it is. That is kind of like a thing I hear from people that are interested in doing comic books. Is like, how far do you go into how much you instruct an art? Like the person who's going to be doing the finalized art for things. I've heard everything from like Snyder and Capullo's relationship, as Capullo basically told Snyder to shut up and let him do his job.
Yep.
From his mouth. I don't know him saying it. To like people that are completely fine with getting scripts that have actual from the bug's eye view, from the whatever. Like very like that better.
I think it falls into your writer's voice, on how much control you think you need. Now what you write and what you get might be different, but that's part of the process. But I try to always keep my page, like a page of script is a page of comic. Now, every now and then, you're like, hey, I'm having a really large panel on this page and it's got a lot of stuff that I need in it. And so you're going to break that rule. But for the most part, I always try to keep it on, a page to a page. Justin Jordan, when I was talking to him, he strives to do that as well, from what I understand. He's told me. But there are writers out there that like, man, there's a page per panel. Like I know at one point is Alan Moore, of course. He's legendary for his scripts where he would tell you what books are on the bookshelf behind me. And you're like, nobody's going to see those. I'm not worried about that. So yeah, I mean, you have to find what works for you and your artist. Sometimes you have to get a little bit more direction than you want, depending on the artist. And sometimes you have to, you're fine. Hey, draw Edwin cutting this guy's head off and you don't have to say anything else.
Yeah.
I know
what you mean. It looks like artist Tracy Medina is waving from Instagram right now. And David, thank you, man. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Any more questions, y'all? We got about 7 more minutes, and we're going to talk right now about plastic. If you say that sounds dope, you have another opportunity to get into the plastic world because there's going to be a second book.
That's true. Yep, comes out Wednesday.
Yeah, in this book.
So we got Plastic Death and Dolls, and you mentioned earlier, like you don't know how Virginia and Edwin met. Well, you're about to learn. So that's
love story.
So of course, as always, there's a love story in my serial killer things. But what's fun about this one is we're kind of like doing 2 stories at the same time. So there's adult Edwin before he's actually hooked up with Virginia, and then there's 10-year-old Edwin. So you kind of get to see how did Edwin become the quirky serial killer that he is, and then so you get to learn a lot about like his how he was raised and those kind of things. And so, it's a lot of fun because Michelle Madsen, who colored it, she did almost this nostalgic looking, old photo style coloring for the little Edwin parts. And then, did kind of exactly what Laura did on the plastic adult story with a little bit of difference, but enough to be close to the serial killer vibe. And so I'm really excited about it because I think Daniel and I did a pretty good job on this one.
So which serial killers did you research their young lives to kind of get a handle on him, or not at all? Just I'm just gonna make my own origin out of it.
I did a lot of research on different serial. I mean, and there's all the classics, Ted Bundy and Gacy and all these guys, but honestly, it just became I was like, these guys are a little too dark for me. Mm-hmm. And Ted Bundy was a little bit of he's a pretty boy. And as you find out with most serial killers, they're great at interacting with people until they kill them. But I wanted this quirky, offbeat kind of style of serial killer that wasn't your standard, super IQ, super intelligent, super good looking kind of person. So I did my research and then went, I don't like any of these people. I want to do something different.
I love questions like this. The question is, can Magneto pick up Thor's hammer? I love you so much for asking those questions. I don't know. What do you say?
No.
He's not worthy?
Yeah, he's not worthy. Yeah. But I'm kind of a stickler on that one. Like Thor, and I'll give Captain America, but like, Thor and Captain America might be it for me.
Mm-hmm. Even with his powers, he's asking with his powers. Like it. Well, okay. So is Uru metallic? Like, is it a true metal, or is it actual souls of worlds destroyed?
See, that would make a great story there. That'd be fun to dive into that, and like, why can't Magneto pick it up? Well, because it's not metal.
That would be cool. Because I did have one. I wish I could find the book again because they put it out. I don't know, maybe right before pandemic, where it actually had the story of the origin of the hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was like maybe it is made out of souls. Maybe that's why you have to be worthy. Oh, crazy. Okay, so how is this new series of plastic going to be available, and how do people make sure they get it?
Well, it's going to be floppies. It's going to be a 5-issue miniseries. Comes out this Wednesday at all your comic stores, of course. So the best way to get it is to call your local comic book store and have them put one on hold for you. That's always the best way to get it. And like I said, 5 issues. We tried our best to make this one as standalone as we could, although there will be some references to the original plastic. You don't necessarily have to read the original plastic to read this one and enjoy it.
That's awesome. So here you go. Here's your fair warning. You've got a couple days to get with your LCS and make sure that they have this for you. It is with Image, so you should be able to, even if they didn't order enough, you should be able to get them to order it now and get it in without there being a shortage of issues. So always stay on top of these things, and information is key, communication is key for them. So I'm super excited to read it because I love origin stories, and I've always wondered about how they met and fell in love, because it's so romantic. Right. One last question, and then we gotta take a break. Have you written other things besides Image Comics?
I did for a long time. I actually worked for DC Custom for about 10 years. So I did a couple of Batman things, mostly on the online side of things. I did a Marvel's, Black, White, and Blood, issue number 2 that just came out. World of Warcraft Bloodsworn. And I also did a long time ago, I did Red Sonja Witchblade.
Oh, yeah.
And then, just
matchup.
With DC Custom, what was great is like Gatorade would come in and say, hey, we want you to write a Superman comic. And so you'd write a Superman comic for Gatorade. So I got to write a lot of DC characters that nobody will ever, they printed more of them than you see in regular comics. Like we did one for General Mills that was in cereal boxes. They printed like 5 million of them, but nobody's ever going to see it. But I got to write the Justice League, so that was fun.
Ooh, teamwork. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I look forward to, trying to negotiate my way into being the reviewer for that book tomorrow, which the rest of the team's going to try to get. I know they are. So, and thank you so much for always being willing to reach out and for being accessible to all your fans. It's a very sweet thing for you to do.
No, it's honestly my pleasure. I mean, I feel like we're all in the same boat, and we're all the same people that love the same stuff. And that's why I love going to conventions and going to stores and that kind of stuff, because I always feel like really comfortable and safe that I'm with a group and we all love the same stuff. So it's my pleasure.
Yeah. Boo, but not really, Miss Jen. See, that's Jay. He's the one competing with me. All right, Ray, stick around because we get to talk to Austin McKinley about Riot Force, and you're going to see how his origin story is something you guys will recognize because you guys know him through somebody else that's a friend of our channel already. Thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Jen. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right. We'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Bye.
What do you call the place on Spider-Man's wrists where the webs come out? His website. I hate myself for writing that joke, but you'd make me feel so much better if you just visited our website. We have links to our merch, new release lists, all the show info, and so much more. TheEXPLive.com. in a world where you hit like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. That'd be really great, thanks.
Everybody, and welcome back. I hope your head exploded a lot from that awesome interview. I'm excited so much to talk to our next guests because it's not only comic books that they're involved in, it's filmmaking and video game design and all the things that we love. So much love for it. Everybody, welcome Austin McKinley.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, I like your big sign.
Oh, thank you.
Banner for going to cons?
I'm sorry?
Is that your banner for the conventions?
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, you know, with everything online nowadays, I almost couldn't tell if it was like, oh, maybe that's just digital.
Yeah, no, it's just, make the room more interesting.
Oh, so cool. Well, you still can't see it. I was pulling up I got my butts and seats.
Oh, cool.
I know I have Nightmare World, and I know I've got tons of Tales Mystery. And I have Legend at Homey, but for some reason I couldn't find them. So that means we probably sold them all because we sold them
Good.
a lot. So that's how you guys know this awesome work is that a lot of it has appeared in Dirk Manning's awesome series and has made it all the better. How did you guys meet?
Online, I think that he was putting out a call for colorists. I started coloring Josh Ross, and then we met at Wizard World, so that gives you some indication of how far back we're going.
4 times?
Yeah, and he saw my portfolio and was like, "Oh, you can draw too. What do you like to draw? I'll write you a story." And so then I started drawing stories for Nightmare World, and we've been collaborators ever since.
That's so wonderful. All right, let's talk a little bit about your origins.
Okay.
Okay, so where'd you grow up?
Austin, Texas.
Woo! I grew up in Georgetown, Texas. We can all talk about all the best food now.
Indeed.
You know what's so funny is I talk to a ton of people in comic books, and a lot of them are from Texas. It's a mind-blowing amount of them.
Well, everything's so far apart. You need good reading material.
I guess that might be it. Okay, so growing up in Austin, I'm sure you got to go and do all the fun things. Zilker Park.
Oh, yes.
Going to the caverns in Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
All these things. What was the best thing about growing up in Austin? What is your childhood memory that's the best?
It just was a very hip place. There was always something interesting going on, something sort of larger than life, I think when I moved away from Texas, I didn't realize how much large scale things were a part of my psyche. I remember there was a thing at Zilker Park, like at Christmas time, that you would drive through and they had displays of these like off-brand characters. It was called the Yuletide Trail. Yes. And there were these manic life-size ice cream cones that just looked like they were going to see you as a child. And so, yeah, like all that kind of stuff was just, I don't know, it just felt amazing.
So were you of the age that you would have maybe got to enjoy the Magic Time Machine?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh. The late lamented Magic Time Machine.
You can actually still go to one in San Antonio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's great.
Nice. For those who don't know what the Magic Time Machine is, it was I want to say it was misshapen concrete kind of space that was like a themed restaurant, in every sort of room where you would eat had, was either medieval themed or space themed or something like this. And great shtick at the Magic Time Machine.
So the big deal was that your waiter or waitress was always dressed up as a character, and they were always in character.
In character, yeah.
So if you were getting served by Ace Ventura, you were likely to get pranked many times.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know. There was some really great, like I would watch. When I went to the one in San Antonio, I literally watched Ace Ventura like climb onto things when no one was watching him.
Wow.
Climbing on things and baking paper things, and I don't know, just like doing Ace Ventura stuff. He would just walk up to random things that were inanimate and do like, I must ask you a question.
Oh, how funny.
Totally turned over. He was into it.
So that's an interesting razor. I would not have seen Ace Ventura at the Magic Time Machine because I moved away before that movie came out. So I mean, I remember like, you know, Robin Hood and things like this. But yeah, no, that's cool. I love it.
Grew up with some fun stuff. Okay, so did you move away before like South by Southwest became a thing there?
Yeah.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah.
I mean,
88.
I was just
I moved away.
Oh, we both did. That was my graduation year too. Move out into the world. So when did you fall in love with and start working in the comic book world?
So when I was in 4th grade, my friend introduced me to X Factor.
That's a good friend.
Yes. So yeah, I started reading that right at sort of the beginning of Walter and Louise Simonson's tenure on the book. And, you know, that definitely cemented my love for serial storytelling, especially, you know, that kind of, you know, the next bit's going to come out next month. You got to get to the grocery store or spin a rack and find it. And so you can talk about it with your friends.
Did you like identify with any specific character or just like the team?
Not specifically. I think what I identified with, what I liked the idea of, was the kind of team dynamic, you know, that there was a group that was engaged in a particular mission, and they all sort of brought something to the table, and how they collaborated and interacted, and the sort of dynamics that took place, the kind of tension and, you know, even soap opera aspects of it. That was the thing that I really enjoyed.
So did you right away start like dipping your hands into like trying to create comic books? Like
absolutely,
right away. There's some cool, like, you know, 8-year-old, you know, pages out there somewhere. Oh yeah, I want pictures.
So Riot Force is in fact based on the characters that I created when I first started reading comic books when I was 9 years old. You know, like it was an interactive medium. It felt accessible, you know, like there were letters in the back. It was very human scale. Like, you know, you would watch a cartoon on TV and there's just like no conception of how that was even done. But a comic book was something that a person or a couple of people drew. And so it was a natural thing to start doing that yourself, you know, to use that medium as a form of communication. And I think too, like one of the great things about the comic medium is that it exists on a level that predates text, you know, like it's something that even before we had language as a species, like you know when another human is scared or happy or in pain or something like this, you know, so like it's facial expressions, it's body posture, and so yeah, like that is something that kids can understand even if they don't know all the words or have to look some of them up, you know. So yeah, like it was something that I immediately gravitated towards and started emulating and looking for ways to tell my own stories that I cared about in that form.
Well, that's awesome. Oh, Make Two's got a good question. What was your first printed work?
Well, it depends. Xerographic or offset?
Those are fancy words that you need to tell people what they are now.
Okay, so when I was in 7th grade, we went to the local copy shop, Alpha Graphics, and we started printing our comic books and selling them at school and getting in trouble for that. So that would be my first printed work. After college, I did a free press magazine called Hub City, and that was kind of an anthology series of ongoing stories. But that was the first time that we actually, did original pages and took them to a place where they were photographed and plates were made and stripped and sent to the printer. So that was a slightly larger scale operation. But yeah, it's always a rolling kind of thing. But all my stuff going way back has been very DIY. So, I like to print my own stuff.
I have a crazy question for you, because you mentioned Alpha Graphics, and I know where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know Dobbins Hill House, whose family owned the Alpha Graphics?
No. Now this was in South Carolina, where I moved when I was about 12. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't know at that time that chain was where it started or anything like that. That was just the local copy shop that I happened to go to.
That's so crazy. So I was like, that would have been way too much, first degree of separation as my husband's best friend. So. Oh,
that would be. No personal connection other than that was the store I happened to go to, and it was miles away from where I started.
I wonder how many people that are creator folks started with their very first book was one that they went and. Like for mine, it was when we printed at Kinko's, and they let us use their giant stapler at midnight because we're just happy to have some company. Because it was just
I think there's probably an era where when that became accessible, it was a natural thing for people to go and do, and it was a time of DIY too. You had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you had Flaming Carrot, you had all these sort of small scale operations that it was just like, well, yeah. I'm going to make some comics and I need more than one copy. Where do I get that? Copy store. Done.
Exactly. All right. So you're a well-rounded, creative. So tell everybody a little bit about filmmaking and video game design, because I know there's a lot of people that are interested in both of those things. And are they tied together for you along with the comic books? Absolutely.
They're all sort of methods of delivering a visual textual narrative. They're different mediums. They all have their pluses and minuses. But they're all things that once you are sort of steeped in sequential storytelling, it's a natural transition when the opportunities arise to work in those other mediums. I got into filmmaking because I was in an office making comics as a executive space. We rented a room in a collection of other offices, and there was another guy in there who was a video producer, and so I started helping him on sets, and it's like, oh, I could probably do this too. And so we did one short film, and then my second short film was a film adaptation of a short that I drew for Nightmare World.
Oh.
So yeah, there's a space story, because whenever Dirk asks me, what do you want to draw? I say spaceships, because that's my thing. So he wrote this space story, and I drew it. This was in, I think 2009 was when the story first came out. No, it had to be earlier than that. I forget. But at some point when I started making films, I was like, that's one guy in a spacesuit and kind of some sets, and I had a location that I was a sand mine here in Florida that that I was like,
mine the sand.
Yeah, well, it's part of a process. You dig up the phosphates and you separate them out, and you sell the shells for gravel driveways and the sand for fill in and whatever it is, and then you build a development of houses on top of that. But yeah, so this place had these giant piles of sand, washed sand, but it looked and like the rain had fallen on them, and carved out these sort of natural looking channels, and it looked like another world. And I'm like, man, that's space right there. All I have to do is put stars in the sky, and that's a space movie. So yeah, we did a film version of Life in a Glass House, written by Dirk Manning, and that was my second short film.
So where do we find that?
It's on YouTube. My channel is Flying Car Pictures. There's probably a playlist there of some of my different films, or my website, austinmckinley.com. It's on there too.
Writing down.
And then through that I met some other people that wanted to do video games. So it was a fit for me. I've worked in games both as a writer and as a production artist, and then but the sort of big thing that was a really great life experience was I met a guy in my local film group who was the director of photography on one of my short films, and then wanted help for his project. He wanted to make a video game for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. That was the game that he dreamed of making when he was 8 years old. And, he had discovered that people had reverse engineered how to program for the gray cartridges that you blow on and put in a Nintendo. And he wanted to make a game for that. And sort of as a frame for people who do this in this community, the sort of indie development retro gaming community, and more broadly, like, what is the value of these early childhood ambitions, and what happens when you try to pursue them as a adult creative professional. What's worth sacrificing for in order to make that happen? Why do we care so much? These sort of things. And so that became a whole fusion of game development and filmmaking and whatever. But one of the things that was really powerful about that project was the way when people would see the film and say, you inspired me to pick back up that album that I never finished recording, or, to finish my novel, or whatever it is, and so that was why revisiting my childhood comic book property was the natural next step in that process, because I was like, those childhood ambitions do have validity. Like, you don't have to step away from them. They are somehow your earliest distillation of the thing that is the you that you can do, and I think that's really important for people to identify and pursue.
So when you went back and looked at what you had done or put aside, or what your thoughts about Riot Force were,
mm-hmm.
were you surprised at that? Were they really great? Better than you thought? You're like, oh no, this needs a lot of work. What was your thought process when you first looked back at it? You're like, okay, I'm totally going to do this thing now.
It was a mix of those things. Like, I was obviously, I was proud of what we accomplished. We did 7 fairly decent sized issues of this thing. Like, we had no conception of commercial page counts or anything like this. So, an issue would be 49 pages or something. But we did a lot of work, about comparable to what the final graphic novel of Riot Force is, approaching 300 pages. And a lot of it was unintentionally humorous, like, and some of it was just, oh man, that's not how the world works at all, like, here's how that would really go down, kid. But it was an interesting exercise in adapting it, trying to strike that balance of, I want this to appeal to the 13-year-old that thinks, car-mounted guns are awesome, You know, and the adult that's like, oh no, that's a terrible idea. That's going to go horribly wrong. and you know, the fun to me in Riot Force is playing with that sensibility and how far I can push it and how far I can bring it back, and you know, make you, you know, not see these cartoon characters as farcical, but you know, as empathetic entities that are nevertheless childlike over responders to everything. So that it was both edifying and, you know, kind of like here's what I would do as an editor. You know, if I were handed this script written by a 13-year-old, okay, cool, you can have that, but also we need to address this bit of cognitive dissonance here.
So the team that you said that you idolize or liked about X-Force, did that color your formation of this team?
I'm sorry?
Did that color your formation of this team, how they interact with each other?
Certainly. You know, there's been a lot of other great stuff since, you know, and it's really only sort of in looking back that I'm like, oh, I see why I'm kind of driven to team-based narratives. That was certainly the first thing that caught my imagination. But, you know, it's also Star Trek. It's also, you know, the Dirty Dozen. It's the Untouchables. It's all these sorts of things that to me is one of the subplots. You know, if the A story is we have to save the city from the mad bomber, you know, the subplot is I'm having an issue with my coworker.
Of course.
And we can all kind of relate to that.
All right, your shirt, is that Ouroboros?
This is a company that manufactures the boards for the NES cartridges. This is Infinite NES Lives.
Oh, how cool.
So, yeah.
That's really neat. And I saw that Make 2 had a question, is that you were very busy, and do you have any big ideas and goals for the future?
Is this not enough?
Are you not entertained?
No, I mean, getting to this point in Riot Force has been, you know, about approaching 3 years of full-time work. And, you know, my big goal right now is to get it in people's hands so they can start enjoying it. You know, there's definitely some new projects cooking, some things that I'd like to do next. But I'm really enjoying this phase of the process, you know, of having finished this graphic novel and running the campaign to get copies in people's hands.
So I know that this is like a 300-page book.
Mm-hmm.
What other cool things can people look forward to if they wanted to back the Kickstarter? What are the cool things that are being offered?
So we've got, you know, I'm doing a Riot Force t-shirt, of course. I am offering sketches of the characters. I'm offering pages of original artwork because it's all done traditionally in pen and ink, you know, 11 by 17 pages. So that's something you can also get. And we kicked within 8 hours. And as we're rounding out the first week, we've unlocked 2 stretch goals. So I'm doing signed book plates for all the book level pledges and above, and we've got some new stuff. The next sort of step is remarked book plates. I'll spend a little more time with them and really personalize those, and then we're on to the next round of stretch goals, which are to be revealed hopefully soon.
So is it super tough to try to like figure out what to offer, what you think people will want?
Yes.
Like how much nail biting is there over those things?
Quite a bit, in fact. But thankfully, I have Dirk Manning in my corner, and he spent a lot of time with me, kind of coaching and cajoling me through that process. So I feel pretty good about where we landed.
Yeah, I don't know, he's knows what he's doing for sure in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when I'm like going, I don't need a Backit, I'm gonna get stuff through retail channels, and I still bought Backit anyway because I'm like, oh, I need that version because it's got a fancy pen and it's
You gotta have the exclusive cover.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you made it so it has a little book,
So
holder and
yeah. So this will be the bookstore cover. That's the normal edition. The Kickstarter will have this as a wraparound cover.
That is a big battle.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Anything else that you have coming out that you want people to start thinking about?
It's such early days. Like I just finished doing thumbnails for a one shot that I'm going to start working on as soon as this campaign wraps. Maybe bits and pieces as I can, but it's hard to sit down and spend 4 to 6 hours drawing a page when you're constantly refreshing the campaign.
It's like one thing at a time, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm hoping we got some more eyeballs to your awesome project. We'll remind everybody to not go anywhere because Comic Collectibles is up next, and they've got some really killer stuff as always. We get to keep our love of comic books going here and get to make some purchases. So remember to always support creative folks. They're putting their heart and soul out there for you guys. And as he says, he's already put up all of the time, energy, and money. He's just asking you to show him you love him by getting some copies and maybe some for friends. Thank you so much, Austin. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everybody else for being here for Talkin Shop. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Did you know that Arthur, King of the Britons, in Monty Python and the Holy Grail was played by a famous Graham? Check out another famous Graham by following our Instagram.